The Africa Innovation Summit is essentially our idea of building a platform in Africa that can mobilize the population, the stakeholders, to begin to promote innovation. Because the only way we're going to resolve our problems and resolve our challenges and be able to compete globally is if we are able to build innovation-driven economies and societies on the continent. So the IES is a way to bring the stakeholders together, the policymakers, the innovators, the academics, the business people, the investors, and the civil society to see how we can work together to build an ecosystem that is much more robust, is much more supportive of innovation. Because the African environment, there are a lot of innovations taking place, but a lot of our innovators are handicapped by many things, whether it is financing, access to mentoring, access to being able to, capacity to be able to manage a business. So they have a lot of constraints. And what we are trying to do with these summits is to identify these constraints and see how we can work with them and bring other people on board to work with them to resolve these problems. Because
it's quite very clear from the conversations we're having every day that funding is a very big problem, or financing. Yes. What other innovative ways are you looking at, to raise funding for these innovators?
Okay, as I was saying before, we are trying to bring the partners, the stakeholders together to see how we can work together to resolve these problems. Because I don't have the money personally, but what we are doing, at least in this summit, we have investors. People are talking to them and discussing to see what projects can invest in. We are also trying to see how we can create a process in which investors and innovators with products can be matched. So looking longer term, we're now beginning to design a platform, like a marketplace of ideas, where innovators will put their projects and those investors will match them with them, and they can analyze and see what projects are interesting for them to finance. Also on the same platform, it will be a process in which we have people who have experience in business. These are business leaders who can provide advisory support, who can serve as a mentor and coaches. Because yes, funding is very important, but once you get the funding, what do you do next? How do you manage a business?
Actually, that brings me to the fact that 90% of most of the innovations of businesses, startups, do not survive their third year, which also makes investors or funders a bit skeptical. Where is the challenge? Where they hang?
That's normal, even in the US, where you have big startups emerging to become big companies. The failure rate is about 80%.
But you want them to go from just startups
to businesses. So to do this effectively, you have to have resources to scale up, to get funding. Not just funding, you also have to get mentorship. You have to get skills in to manage the companies properly. Just because somebody can invent something, or can innovate on something, doesn't make them a business manager.
You realize 70% of the consumers in Africa are in the informal sector.
Yes.
Are we really building the right solutions for them?
We're not building solutions for them. They are also within the informal sector. They are building solutions for themselves. A lot of the innovation taking place in Africa is actually right in the informal sector. The key at this stage is to see how do we work with the informal sector, not necessarily to become formal, everybody wants to turn informal to become formal, but how do we help them to enhance their productivity? How do we work with them to say, okay, when you have a system that you built here to ensure that they can actually scale market, these are critical issues. I think the African informal sector, which is probably the most important in many of our countries, we need our policymakers need new approaches and new ways to support them, rather than looking for ways just to officially sign them up to become formal. They need more support than that.
Now, we have also a growing population of young people. We expected to have double the population of China and India. This is such a critical mass. It could be a blessing or a curse, depending on how we leverage this with development in our countries. How do we leverage with these young people, especially in terms of accelerating development through ICTs?
I think we have to look at different ways. Our youth, we see them as an asset. But as you said also, if we don't develop, if we don't provide support, if we don't provide the right education, the right skills training, the right mentoring, so they can actually create their own businesses and create their own enterprises, we could have a situation in which they turn into what we don't desire in our countries. The challenge at this stage for African policymakers is to get a handle on this, because what we begin to see, we've been seeing lately, is young people voting with their feet, trying to get on a boat to get to Europe, because they think Europe is a Eldorado where they can go to go and make their life for themselves. But we have to be able to educate the young people that opportunities are here, right in Africa. The market is here. The youth is here. So the future of the world could be here on the continent. But we all have to be engaged in it and stop looking for the easy way out. In a way that, okay, I will pack my bag, I go to Europe, and Europe will solve my problems. But no, because Europe also has its own problems, its own challenges. So we have to see how we can come together as government, because we cannot keep blaming the government. We also have a role to play in this.